The latest Ag Economy Barometer, which is released by Purdue each month, asked farmers if they think things in the U.S. are generally trending in the right direction. 74% of respondents said yes, but concerns about weak income prospects this year also showed up, with the overall barometer falling 14 points in just a month. Those concerns are stemming from the fact most major ag commodities are seeing 4 consecutive years of poor profits. We take a look in this week's Farm Journal report. It's a pivotal point for farmers across the U.S. As crop conditions remain strong, the idea of big yields is driving down the price of corn, with December corn futures falling to fresh lows this week.
We look at what has changed since 2022. These current prices below $4. We look back to the peak in 2022, we had prices over $8. So we're talking about a 50%, more than 50% decline from that peak in 2022.
Krista Swanson is chief economist for National Corn Growers Association, but also farms with her husband in Illinois. She says even though corn futures have been cut in half since 2022, input prices are still high.
The average cost of production to grow an acre of corn is almost the same for both 2025 and 2026 as it was in 2022. So as we look ahead, we're talking about just a couple percent lower, over $900 an acre.
Swanson says fertilizer makes up about 40% of a farmer's total operating costs for growing corn. And according to StoneX, the corn to phosphate price ratio hit the highest on record this week. Assigned fertilizer prices may not have even hit their highs yet.
The MAP and DAP and potash have increased about 10% since the beginning of the year. If we look at those 28 and 32% solutions, anywhere from 30 to 37% increases. Currently, it would take about 226 bushels to buy a ton of monoammonium phosphate, and that was 180 bushels at the beginning of this year. So we're talking about an increase of 46 bushels needed to buy the same ton of fertilizer just in this calendar year.
So right now, as it stands today, do you think the cost of producing an acre of corn will actually be more in 2026 than it was in 2025?
Yeah, I think the signs are there, especially when you consider where fertilizer prices are now. And, we're coming up on what I call input buying season.
Swanson says it's a combination of factors fueling the higher fertilizer prices, including geopolitical tensions as well as the uncertainty surrounding tariffs.
The uncertainty around when and if those import tariffs will be in place and what nations those impact and what levels those will be is adding to kind of the cost that gets passed on to farmers.
And it's that message the National Corn Growers Association is trying to get to the Trump administration, recently sending this letter. But it's higher input prices combined with commodity prices that continue to slide, creating a poor profitability picture in agriculture. And this chart from Swanson says it all, with multiple years of negative returns projected for nearly every major crop in agriculture.
I think the big concern, especially as we turn to looking at 2026, is that we're talking about for almost every single crop, 2026 being at least the 4th consecutive year of negative returns, over $100 an acre losses. And that's not accounting for crop insurance or any government payments. That is specifically looking at costs and returns from those grain sales.
The latest Ag Economists monthly monitor showed just over half of economists think the crop side of agriculture is currently in a recession.
It's a cost price squeeze on the input prices versus the cost of the output prices. But I think for the farm economy to be in a recession, you have to see some softening of land prices, both on the rental side and on the ownership side. And USDA just released on the 1st of August their latest land estimates. And I think a fair characterization of it is that land values were up. Cash rent was stable to slightly up. That does not corroborate, in my mind, with a sector that's in recession.
That USDA annual land values report released last week showed continued strength in land values, with the average land price rising to $4,350 per acre, a 4.3% increase from 2024. And while not all economists think agriculture is in a recession, 80% of those surveyed do think the current environment will accelerate consolidation.
I think the standard is that consolidation will occur time no matter what. It's the nature of commodity production. I think The interesting question is, are we going to see more consolidation than we would normally see?
The monthly monitor also asked which region of the country is seeing the most severe financial pressures impact farmers. And 38% said the Midwest, while 15% think it's the Mid-South. But 8% also said the West. A reminder, it's not just row crops in the central and southern U.S. feeling the financial pinch.
So are these really tough times for agriculture? It certainly seems like it.
The current downturn is also consuming fruit and tree nut growers in California.
It's been worse. See, 2 or 3 years ago, the tree nut business was much worse than it is now. We may be going back again, given all the tariffs and potential retaliations. The wine grape industry and the whole grape industry, raisins and table grapes too, are really struggling now. And that's a global phenomenon. And it's hard to see where that's going.
Which one do you think is feeling the pinch the most?
I would have to say the wine grapes because it's hard to see where it goes from here.
People consuming less wine has been a big hit to grape demand even before the tariffs. But for tree nuts, it's uncertainty surrounding tariffs and big buyers like China just shutting off.
And since China used to be such a big market for them, and China, you're dealing with the government there, so you could write down what the tariffs are, and then you write down what the government policy says to the importers, and of course they've got their centrally planned economy. So it's been tough on tree nuts, that Chinese market.
Many segments of California agriculture are struggling. But Sumner says the one positive is downturns create opportunities for some producers.
I do think there are opportunities, and there will be people sometimes under stress. People look around, and so I think I'm a long-term optimist for sure. And it will be everything you can name about technology or innovation is an opportunity for people who are really forward-looking. Now, it's true they have to have some capital, but there's lots of capital looking to come into agriculture. So I'm not pessimistic about the long-term future of agriculture at all. It may take a couple of years to get into the next phase. We'll see.
Now, Zulauf told me there's 3 things to watch in the ag economy. The first is tariffs and trade, not only how the U.S. resolves it, but also with whom. The second is interest rates, and if the Fed decides to cut those rates or leave them at current high levels. The third is the labor market, and if we continue to see the tight labor market persist. Well, when we come back, the Trump administration following through with increased tariff threats. We'll tell you what countries are impacted in ag around the world next.